1, cooking my way through the French laundry cookbook. Let's cook.
As a YouTuber, home chef, and mom of 2, I cook for my viewers, my family, and for comfort. But I want to kind of step out of my comfort zone and challenge myself to try something new. So there's a whole other side to cooking that's purely art. So today I thought I'd recreate a dish from the best restaurant in the world, the French Laundry. The French Laundry is a 3 Michelin star restaurant located in the wine country of Northern California. Owned by chef Thomas Keller, it offers 2 different 9-course tasting menus comprised of mainly French and contemporary American influences at $355 a person and can go all the way up to $1,000 with wine pairing. In 2005, Anthony Bourdain called it the best restaurant in the world, period. I've never actually been to the French Laundry before, and I definitely have never tried to plate food like a piece of art like this. So this is gonna be a really fun challenge. I'm looking on their Instagram page and I've decided to choose this one right here. That's a pretty basic dish. It's a meatloaf and mashed potato dish. There looks to be 5 components to this dish: a quart of mushroom meatloaf, a single onion ring, potato puree, some braised celery, and whole grain mustard gravy. There's nothing in the French Laundry cookbook that's similar to this dish, but since I already have a few of Thomas Keller's books, I'm gonna try to find some other inspirations. His last book that I have, Ad Hoc at Home, hopefully they have something similar to what I'm looking for. Definitely not the same techniques, but hopefully something that I could learn from. Sirloin beef chuck and a little bit of veal. Okay, I think we can do this. Let's go to the store. Since we're making food from the best restaurant in the country, I wanted to get the best possible ingredients for this dish, so I headed to a place called Mario's Butcher Shop in Costa Mesa. There I found a meat blend with short rib, brisket, and chuck.
Pretty much just the right consistency of fat, like the right percentages of fat to make an extremely juicy burger. Also very flavorful cuts as well. So lots of blood flow to those areas, so there's a lot of flavorful pieces of meat in there.
When the owner Mario asked what I was gonna do with this blend, I decided to show him the dish that I'm trying to recreate. He looked at it and thought it would be best to double grind the meat so we have a finer meat texture.
Yeah, I think we should grind it twice.
Yeah?
For sure.
Okay.
Can I? Yeah?
Sure, yeah, thank you. While waiting, I also found the perfect seasoning for the dish too, with some tarragon, parsley, thyme, chives, and lavender, everything I need to elevate this meatloaf. So the finer the grind, it holds together better?
I think it just makes if you're looking for texture, I think that's what it is right there. Because then it's going to be kind of, it's going to have more of a bite. This one's going to be a little more loose. I think that's what you want right there.
Okay.
All right.
Great. Thank you.
Of course.
That was actually so nice of him to study that picture with me and give me his recommendation on how fine the meat should look, because I never would have known to like double grind it, but we have secured our goods. Upon researching more on this dish, I realized that this meatloaf and mashed potatoes that was in quote is a tasting of vegetables. So the meatloaf is actually a mushroom meatloaf. But since I already went to the butcher and got all the meat for this, we're gonna go with it and make it a mushroom meatloaf with real meat.
This is the moment we have all been waiting for.
Welcome to Kitchen Stadia. This is Iron Chef.
All right, I'm back in the kitchen and I have everything laid out for the dish. I'm actually pretty terrified just because I browsed the instructions and they're a lot more involved than a typical recipe that I would do, for example, like mashed potatoes. So with that, I'm gonna tackle the ones that take the longest first, which is making the mashed potatoes and then braising the celery. So this is a lot more different than how I would normally do my potatoes. We're basically placing the whole potatoes unpeeled in here first, cold water, and then bringing it to a boil. Now next up, we are gonna be braising the celery, which I'm following this recipe of like braised beef cheeks with veal tongue and baby leeks because they braise the baby leeks. So I'm just gonna follow the method for the leeks, and hopefully it works out. Actually though, I remember seeing a celery root recipe that they also braise, and I wonder if that would work better because it's celery and not celery root, which is a little different and not just like all the other vegetables. Celery root. I'm very flustered right now because I don't really know exactly what I'm doing. Gently cooks, Okay, so I'm cooking onions and garlic in butter in a saucepan until they've softened. Add celery. I think I'm gonna go with this one instead just because there's no meat involved in this one. It just seems to make a little more sense to me. I'm going to just cut it to fit the pan. 1.5 teaspoons of garlic, which is not what I'm used to. It's typically like 2 cloves of garlic for a home chef or like 5 cloves of garlic. It's just easier to understand, but I'm going to estimate that it's about 4 cloves. And if it's not, well, hopefully it won't make too much of a difference because garlic makes everything better. I don't know how much to use. Gently cook in a medium saucepan over low heat for 3 to 4 minutes until they've softened. I think I hear it boiling, so let's check on our potatoes. Nope, not yet. Another thing that I really wanted to do for the meatloaf compartment, since I did mention that it was supposed to be a mushroom meatloaf instead of a meatloaf, I do have some dried mushrooms here that I'm gonna rehydrate and hopefully infuse it with enough of that mushroom flavor so that it comes through in the meatloaf. This one is just a chanterelle. It has a very pungent flavor. Maybe that's enough. And then porcini, which is usually used in a lot of like risottos that I've seen at restaurants. I need to stir that. I think that should be enough. And then we're just gonna borrow some boiling water from the potatoes, which is nice and boiled. Okay, so I'm supposed to cook this for about 3 to 4 minutes on low heat until it's tender, which it is. And then now we're just gonna add our vegetables and vegetable stock, which I'm only gonna be using the celery that I've cut up here and then braising it with the garlic and onion, which should be good. I kind of want to add a sprig of thyme just for added flavor, but I don't want to stray too much from his recipe, so maybe I won't. We're gonna braise it in some vegetable broth. And you know what, I think because this is such a simple dish, I will take one liberty, I'm sorry Chef Keller, and add thyme. Just a tiny little bit. Just enough to like add some interest to celery. All right, so let's check on the potatoes. They've been boiling. I'm supposed to boil them for about 20 minutes. They're still a little hard. This is coming up to a simmer. All right, so I think I'm in a good spot to move on to the meatloaf. Yes. So the biggest challenge for me for this meatloaf, I've been thinking a lot about it and how they created this. There's a nice crust around there. It almost looks like it was extruded as a sausage with maybe a casing, because there's like this glossy thing out there, or it could just be a nice glaze that they put out there. Regardless, I don't really have a good idea of what it is, so I'm just gonna try to achieve the shape of it and make a nice crust around that. Now I'm following the recipe for the meatballs, but we're gonna infuse it with some of this mushroom. So let me go ahead and grab my food processor to really make it nice and fine. Chopped onion, minced garlic, 2 teaspoons of minced garlic, which means maybe 5 cloves. Before I add anything else though, I think I need to preheat the oven because we're gonna be baking our meatloaf. Is baking it the right way to do it though? That's the home chef way of doing it. So they do bake their meatballs too at 425, wow. I normally would have just done 350, which is like the standard for me, but learning things. So I want pretty even, small chunks. Ooh, it smells so good. The mushrooms definitely give it this like really umami smell. I don't want too much texture in the meatloaf, so I'm gonna grind it down pretty fine. But I feel like this might be too much, but we're gonna go with it. I'm also gonna be adding those like fine French herbs that I found at the market, deli, about a teaspoon. Rookie mistake, I should have added the parsley in first, because now it's like not grinding well together. I'm getting into puree territory and I don't want that, so I think this is just gonna have to be how it's gonna be. Ugh, there's like big pieces of stems in there. Here's another game plan. I am going to just finish mixing the meatloaf and then get back to the potatoes, because part of the instructions for the potatoes is that I need to be able to peel them while they're semi-hot. Like, that's a whole different training altogether. Getting an egg. We have our double ground meat. I'm using panko because that's all I have. I didn't see any salt in this recipe, and I definitely think that it should have it, so I just added a little bit. So with this, I think what I'm actually gonna do is spread it into a small sheet pan. I do want it to be rather thick, so I'm only gonna do half and then press it against this pan. I don't even know if this step is necessary, to be honest with you. I'm just trying to keep it contained. It's time to check on our potatoes. So this whole process of putting the potatoes in cold water and then bringing it a boil is completely new to me. Typically when I'm making mashed potatoes, I would boil the water first, put the peeled potatoes in, and then let it come to a boil. So for this recipe, I'm supposed to use a food mill or a potato ricer, neither of which I have. So I'm gonna try to just press it through a strainer into a bowl. And then the other kicker is that I'm supposed to mix the butter, cold butter, as I'm milling the potatoes. What the heck? Then quickly peel them. It is important to puree the potatoes while they are still hot. Okay. You're supposed to do it while it's hot, so I don't know how anybody does this. Oh yeah, that's a great idea. I don't have any. Okay, if I leave it flat and just like grab a little at a time, then it's not so bad. Definitely don't recommend picking it up and like doing it. It does come off fairly easily though. I'm gonna come out with like burnt fingers by the end of this. Ow. Cold butter is supposed to emulsify best with the hot potatoes, because if it's warm, when it's combined with the potatoes might become oily. So I do feel like I got the potatoes in terms of blending it right, but for some reason it just became so gummy. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. It's kind of getting stuck. The potatoes are losing steam though. They're not as hot as they were, and this needs to be hot. It just feels like it's getting so gummy and I can't push it through. I'm just getting kind of frustrated here. Look at the gumminess of the potatoes. I don't think you're supposed to get that. I'm doing this all wrong. Oh, I hope it comes out. Okay, next thing, cook it up. Saucepan over low heat and whip the potatoes in a circular motion with a stiff spoon. Okay. I probably could have remedied the potatoes with a few more tablespoons of water to thin it out, but I really wanted to try to stay true to what I had created. It ended up a little dense. The mixture will be stiff. Haha, it is stiff. Spoon should leave a trail on the bottom of the pan? And potatoes should not cling to the sides of the pan. Well, yeah, okay, cool. It is not clinging. It's about 1 to 2 minutes, and then I can leave it here until it's ready to serve, and then we just add the cream to it. Hopefully it'll be the best potatoes I've ever had, but we'll see, because I do not know. One thing I do know about cooking in a high-end or just any restaurant setting is that you have to keep your prep station clean, and this is not clean at all whatsoever. But we're moving on. Okay, I'm in a good spot. The braised celery is still doing its thing. The potatoes don't need to be warmed up with the cream until I'm ready to plate. And then for the onion rings, I'm gonna wait until we're ready to plate too, or just before we plate to do that part, because I want it to stay crispy once we do plate. Upon thinking about it, I figured that crust on the outside was probably a glaze that I will do. So I just looked at the French Laundry cookbook for a glaze, and they use balsamic vinegar. I have this balsamic glaze already that I'm gonna mix with ketchup. Not very high end, but it's meatloaf, and that's not very high end to begin with. Ketchup with black truffle, but would that go with balsamic vinegar? I don't know, it's a risk. I'm gonna try it. It's a little acidic. I think I can add Worcestershire sauce. This will give it like a hint of smokiness that's reminiscent of what you get on a real meatloaf. In the meantime, I guess I can start working on our onions. I forgot to start the timer. So now I'm just gonna have to go by feel. Oh no, it's looking like a giant patty of watery mess. I was afraid that would happen. Usually I'm pretty confident in the kitchen. I came into this a little scared, but I was thinking like I could do it, but this is a lot harder and the techniques are very, very different than what I'm used to as a home chef. I just hope they taste good. So now I'm gonna start prepping the onion rings. In one of his books, I did find fried squash blossoms, which I'm just looking for like the frying technique that they use at his restaurants, and I'm just gonna follow that recipe. So at this point, we're basically just waiting for the meatloaf to finish cooking, but I feel really good about like timing of everything, and I think I'm close to putting the dish together. Let's check on our celery. Ooh. Okay, very nice. It's just on a light simmer. But I will take some of the liquid for that whole grain mustard gravy, which I actually haven't thought through how to do that yet either. No gravy in here. Okay, let's look at this book here. This one is more of the home chef one, so maybe. Is there a mustard? There's a hollandaise sauce. I don't think that's a, oh, we found one. Mustard sauce. Okay, here's what we're gonna do. I'm just gonna try to wing it and hopefully it works. But basically I'm supposed to whisk the cream and mustard to bring it to a simmer. This is done. This is like the only thing that's turned out right so far. I don't even know if it's right. For the onion rings, I've done a lot of deep frying with panko, at least, where it's nice, light, and crispy still. But for some reason, this one uses cornstarch, which I feel like probably makes for a really light batter. And now for the meatloaf, I'm just basically cutting them into small circles to mimic the shape in the photo. They're like basically hamburger patties at this point. And then I brushed on that glaze that I made for the outer rim to make it look like a sausage. Threw it back in the oven, and then for the potato puree, now it's time to add cream. I mean, the only thing that I didn't do wrong is that it didn't leave a trail of potatoes stuck to the bottom. And then it was time to fry the onion rings. I wonder if I like added just too much batter, where it should have been just like a light coating of it. I should have just looked up like an onion ring, because this was for squash blossom. The celery finished braising. Sorry. So one thing that I did forget about was like fine dining always has really nice white china. I don't have those, so I'm gonna use the nicest white plate that I can find in my kitchen. And now to build our meatloaf and mashed potatoes. And here I present to you guys my version of meatloaf and mashed potatoes. Doesn't taste half bad. There's a sweet aftertaste for some reason, and I can't figure out why. Potatoes should not have that structure. Tastes like cooked celery. And then last thing, our onion ring. There's a strange white film around it, which I can't figure out why. It could be from the cornstarch. I did definitely over batter it. So as someone that's always wanted to go to culinary school, I actually wanted to go to culinary school in lieu of college, but my parents wouldn't let me, but that's a whole different story. After trying to recreate this dish from the French Laundry, I have so much more respect for a professional culinary chef that has had years and years of training to create the perfect plate and whole dining experience. Basically, you're not just getting a beautiful plate with yummy food, you're getting a whole creative, artistic side that tells a story on their 9-course menu. But my skill level is simply not there. And even just recreating this, I learned that so many of the most simple dishes like mashed potatoes or potato puree, I couldn't even do correctly. The one thing that I did excel at is probably just the flavor profile on building the meatloaf. I was actually pretty pleased with how that came out. Just like the glaze and the meatloaf probably taste the best. But in terms of the sauce, that takes training, and clearly my skill level is not there because the sauce was just thin, runny, it kind of broke, and I didn't achieve what the photo should have looked like. But that's okay because I'm really happy with the look of the dish. I love food styling, and that's what I probably would really excel at. At the end of the day, I'm just a food YouTuber and I make food that tastes good for you guys. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video today where I challenged myself to make a dish from the best restaurant in the world. I feel like I did okay. Let me know in the comment section below if you want to see more videos like this where I challenge myself outside of my comfort zone and what else I should do. See you guys next time. Bye!
It's not bad. It tastes fancy and the texture's nice. Little dense.
It's very gummy.
Celery has no flavor. I like the meatloaf the best.
Well, there we have it.